When people outside the United States hear about American gun laws, they often think one thing: anyone can buy a gun anytime, anywhere. Others believe the opposite, that guns are heavily regulated and nearly impossible to own legally. So which one is true? The answer is both are wrong. Gun laws in the United States are complex, layered, and often misunderstood, even by Americans themselves. They depend on federal law, state law, local rules, and court decisions that change over time. Today, we're breaking it all down, simply, clearly, and without politics. This is how gun laws really work in the United States. The foundation, the Second Amendment. Everything starts with one sentence written over 200 years ago. The Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution says, "A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed." This sentence has been debated more than almost any other line in American law. For a long time, courts argued over what it meant. Was it about militias only, or individual citizens? In 2008, the U.S. Supreme Court made a major decision in a case called District of Columbia versus Heller. The court ruled that individuals have a right to own firearms for lawful purposes, such as self-defense in the home. But, and this is important, the court also said, the right to own a gun is not unlimited. That one sentence opens a door to regulation. Federal law sets the minimum rules for gun ownership across all 50 states. States can add more restrictions, but they can't go below this baseline. Here's what federal law generally requires. Who cannot legally own a gun? You cannot buy or possess a firearm if you are a convicted felon, are a fugitive from justice, are an illegal drug user or addict, have been committed to a mental institution, have been convicted of domestic violence, are under certain age limits. Background checks. If you buy a gun from a licensed dealer, federal law requires a background check through the FBI's NICS system. This check looks for criminal records and disqualifying factors. Most checks are instant. Some take longer. Some are denied. Waiting periods? Surprisingly, federal law does not require a waiting period. That's up to the states. Types of guns. Federal law tightly regulates machine guns, short-barreled rifles, suppressors. Owning these is legal in some states, but requires special permits, registration, long approval processes, and sometimes complete bans. This is where gun laws become wildly different. The U.S. has 50 states, and each state sets its own rules. That means a gun legal in one state could be illegal just across the border. Let's look at the main differences. 1. Gun-friendly states. States like Texas, Arizona, Florida, Tennessee often allow permitless carry, also called constitutional carry. Faster purchasing. Fewer restrictions on types of firearms. In these states, you may not need a license to carry a handgun. Open carry is often legal. Concealed carry may not require a permit. But even here, background checks and federal restrictions still apply. 2. Strict gun law states. States like California, New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts often require gun licenses, firearm registration, magazine limits, bans on certain rifles, mandatory training, waiting periods. In these states, buying a gun can take weeks or months. Carrying a gun often requires government approval. Some weapons are completely banned. 3. Carry laws, open versus concealed. Open carry, gun visible. Concealed carry, gun hidden. Some states allow both. Some allow only concealed. Some heavily restrict both. And rules change frequently due to court cases. You may have heard, in America, you can buy a gun at a gun show with no background check. This is partly true, but misleading. Here's the reality. Licensed dealers must always run background checks. Private sellers in some states are not required to. This gap is often called the private sale loophole. However, many states now require background checks for all sales. Gun shows themselves do not eliminate federal law. The rules depend entirely on the state. So it's not no laws, it's uneven laws. Gun laws in the U.S. change constantly because courts play a huge role. In 2022, the Supreme Court issued another major ruling, New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin. The court said states cannot require citizens to prove a special need to carry a gun. The right to carry firearms in public is constitutionally protected. This decision forced many states to rewrite their laws. Some responded by creating stricter licensing rules, expanding gun-free zones, adding training requirements. So while the right exists, how it's implemented is still heavily contested. Here's the honest truth. Gun laws in the U.S. do three things: set legal boundaries, limit access for certain people, vary dramatically by location, but they do not eliminate gun crime, apply evenly nationwide, stop illegal trafficking by themselves. The debate isn't simple. It's legal, cultural, historical, and emotional. That's why America's gun conversation never ends. So, how do gun laws really work in the United States? Not as chaos, not as total freedom, not as total restriction. They work as a patchwork system, built on federal rules, shaped by states, and constantly rewritten by courts. Understanding this complexity is the first step to understanding the debate itself. Because in America, gun laws aren't just laws. They're a reflection of history, fear, freedom, and identity.